one. Anyone else want a point about the NHS? Yes, lady in the front there with the glasses.
Excuse me. The thing is that if you open up the NHS to American big business under the trade transatlantic agreement that's going through now, the whole of the NHS is liable to be privatised. Would you vote to get NHS excluded from TTIP?
When you say it's likely to be privatised, do you mean they're going to sell shares and charge people for going to the
What they're going to do is
hospital?
open up the NHS to anybody unless it's specifically excluded in this trade agreement.
Okay.
And we know already that American big business is dying to get its hands on our healthcare.
Jacob Rees-Mogg.
Well, first of all, on the point on TTIP, that is not the effect of TTIP. It would not change the basis of the NHS. All it would mean was that American companies would compete in the UK on the same basis as British companies, but it would not require the government to change its running of the National Health Service. It would be no change for government-run services. It's only in relation...
Why not exclude it from the whole treaty, then?
It may well be excluded because it is effectively excluded anyway.
The question, really, is how you're going to ensure the future of the NHS.
We've got to make sure the economy grows. Got to make sure that we have an economy that is able to pay for the NHS. The Conservatives have committed to the extra £8 billion a year because we are confident that if we make cuts in some other areas and if we ensure that the economy grows, there will be the money to fund it.
OK, Tessa Munt.
Yes. Well,
yes, you, please, with your hand up. That's, please. Yes?
Me.
Yeah, yes, please.
Yeah, I've been an NHS nurse for 35 years, trained at the BRI in 1980. I really take great exception to what the Conservative has said. OK, you said that Americans will be on an equal footing to other people in the UK in terms of privatisation. Well, basically, we don't want privatisation. We want the NHS. If you talk to any members of staff, what they want is a good, decent employer. They don't want a profit motive in the NHS.
Last, very quick word from Jacob.
I'm afraid this privatisation of the NHS is a scare story. It's gone from 5%... It was 5%. It was 5% under the last Labour government. It was 5% under the last Labour government. It is now 6%. All it is using a very modest amount of private suppliers. It is not privatisation, and it ensures the National Health Service remains free at the point of use. That is the commitment that the Conservatives
Jacob, what you've done as well is you've raised...
Rees-Mogg. Paul Krugman, who's a Nobel Prize-winning economist, has been writing in the newspapers today. He says austerity holds back recovery. He says austerity is like hitting yourself in the face for 5 minutes. It feels great when you stop.
Yes.
Paul Krugman is a well-known wrong economist. He got it wrong 5 years ago when he said the austerity wouldn't work and we've had the fastest growth in the G7.
It hasn't worked. It hasn't worked.
We were
Anyone here feel better off?
We were borrowing £150 billion every single year in 2010.
And
we had to get that down. There is no funny money. It doesn't fall off trees. Money that is borrowed is simply taxation delayed, and it's taxation that will be paid by our children and our grandchildren. We had a duty to get that under control.
So why have you borrowed more in the last 5 years, Jacob? Why have you actually borrowed more? You borrowed over £550 billion in the last 5 years.
You can't have it both ways. On the one hand, our austerity has been too great, and on the other, we've borrowed too much.
Deficit and debt
You can't take it both ways round. The gentleman at the back calls out about taxes for the rich. The top, because it raised
taxation deferred.
Because it raised less money than the 45p rate.
No, it doesn't. That's nonsense.
It's actually true. The 50p rate cost £1.8 billion. I'm sorry, sir, you're wrong on that fact.
I'm not wrong.
All right. On the tax of the rich, let
Jacob speak, please.
The top 1% of taxpayers are paying 30% of income tax.
Because they have so much income. That's why they're so rich.
Thank you.
Let him finish.
When income tax was at 98%, the top 1% of taxpayers paid 7% of the total income tax. So you see, you cut rates and you get more money, and that helps the economy to grow.
And the Prime Minister promising... the Conservatives said they were going to reduce immigration to the tens of thousands. What's happened?
Well, we can't reduce immigration to the tens of thousands without changing our terms of reference with the European Union.
Well, no, that's the point that Magdalene was making. She was saying that 55%, and the figures come from the Office of National Statistics.
It depends how... It does... hold on, it depends
She was saying that, so we have control over half of the people who come here.
It depends how you cut the figures. That the 2014, 300,000 net migrants to this country, 200,000 of whom were from the European Union. So it's two-thirds on 2014. So the European Union is a very important part of it. But what concerns me is that I have constituents who have got married to people from India or New Zealand who cannot bring their spouses in. And because we cannot control the European Union, we have become tighter and tighter on non-EU control. And I don't think that's fair on families who have married into non-EU families. I do not understand why we should have a bias in favour of Europe against India or Commonwealth countries. We have much closer associations with our old friends in the Commonwealth than we do with some European nations. So what I want is a level playing field, and if we don't get it in the EU renegotiation which David Cameron has proposed, I will vote to leave the European Union. It is the touchstone issue, in my view, of our membership.
You are the same as UKIP, same policy as UKIP.
Not entirely.
And Jacob knows.
It's from Inan Mawendwa, a second-year medical student. Inan, what would you like to ask? Where are you?
Would it be preferable to have a minority government or another coalition?
Right, a minority government is one that doesn't have a majority but can soldier on and sort of dare the other parties to vote them down. Is that right? OK, Jacob Rees-Mogg.
Well, I would prefer it if the Tories won 650 seats and we had a one-party rule for a bit, with David Cameron being the sort of Kim Jong-un of the United Kingdom. But I'm most unlikely to get that, aren't I? So I would prefer, I think, minority rule. The thing I dislike about coalition goes back to the test question, and that is that it allows politicians to get out of their promises. Because if you go into coalition, you say, oh, our promise on X we've got to drop because the Lib Dems don't like it. Our promise on Y we've got to drop because UKIP doesn't like it. Our promise on Z is all determined by Nicola Sturgeon.
Haven't you? Because you said you wanted Nigel Farage to be David Cameron's deputy.
No, I wanted a pre-election deal so that voters knew what they were getting. I don't like post-election stitch-ups because I think they're fundamentally undemocratic.
Dominic for the Greens.